What is going on, everybody, man? King Recon here. We're coming off of one of the most incredible chapters, one of the most momentous chapters I have ever experienced in all of my years of reading this series weekly, man. And I'm sure that y'all feel the same as well, man. It was truly the ultimate chapter, and the fact that this is taking place in the middle of a saga, at the end of Act 2 of what I'm going to assume is a 5-act saga, has me extremely excited for the future of this arc and this series, man. Super stoked. But before we get into today's topic, which it's going to be different from other Afterthoughts, man, you know, instead of me going through each individual section, I want to just stick about one section. I want to talk about one section in today's Afterthoughts. I really want to talk about Rocks. I want to talk about Garp. I want to talk about Roger, that entire incident at God Valley, and how it could possibly relate to Dragon, Luffy, Blackbeard, and Instant Messenger Sama, man. So I want to talk about that, but before I get into that, man, I just have to say this, bro. By God, man, thank you, dog. Thank you to every single individual who supported the most recent video on the channel, man. Not even on the old channel that was terminated. And if you're new to the channel, I had an old channel that was around for around three and a half years, and it was terminated due to copyright. And so I started this channel. And not even on that channel, which had chapters such as Sabo's return, Kaido's introduction, the chapter 801 with Sanji's wanted alive poster, Gear 4th, a bunch of legendary chapters that on a weekly basis had us just discussing and going in, and I mean, it was booming, you know what I'm saying, in the community. Not even those chapters received the amount of support that this last chapter got, man. I mean, it broke records across the board in every single metric in the analytics section on here on YouTube, man. And for that, I can only say thank you, bro. Because that reaction was an hour and 20 minutes long. And the fact that when I look at the watch time, I look at the retention, and I see how many of you actually watched the majority of that video, it means a lot to me, man. And I truly mean that, bro. I don't expect people to get past the introduction, because I know how I am, man. I can't help it. Whenever I talk about One Piece, I approach One Piece with a different type of intensity than I do other series, because One Piece is the one thing that I'm just so in love with and just love talking about so much that it takes me to like this other state where I can't help it. I can't help but get excited and talk about it. And I know that's not for everyone. So the fact that a whole bunch of individuals came on board after that video, and a lot of you that have been with me for a long time watched that entire thing, just means so much to me, man. I truly do mean that. And I think in retrospective, looking back whenever I started the channel, the new one, and I was like, man, I really hope that one day the individuals that, because there's still people that I miss talking to from the old channel that never found this channel again. And I was like, man, I hope one day I'm able to find those people again. And I have found some of those people again, but I found so many other individuals on this journey, on this weekly experience through this channel, that I'm just so happy that I decided to make it, man. I really am, bro. So from the bottom of my heart, man, not as King Recon, but as Omar, bro, I say thank you, dog, for the amount of support on the latest video. Because like I said, if it was any other reaction, if it was any other video, you know, it would at least be understandable, because I know how y'all are. You know, y'all are used to my 25, 30, 35 minute, 40 minute videos. But dog, that jump was an hour and 20 minutes long for one chapter. And when I see the amount of support, and I see the comments showing that people actually watched it, I'm like, dog, I can't wrap my mind about it. I'm just a dude that talks about One Piece, bro. That's all I am, man. And just to see the amount of support on that video, dog, it blew me away. I'm still blown away, man. I'm still blown away. So thank y'all so much from the bottom of my heart, man. And by the heavens, bro. And it's just like, seriously, man, this morning when I sat down and looked at the analytics section, I was like, bro, y'all are the best, man. Y'all are the best, and y'all come second to no one. Y'all come second to no one. I was like, dog, this is absolutely insane, man. So happy that there are so many individuals that are loving the weekly One Piece experience as much as I am, man. Because it truly is the greatest experience ever, bro. It truly is. I love the weekly experience more than I love the catch-up experience to the series. And I mean that. Like, the weekly experience for One Piece is second to none. Second to none, man. Love reading the series weekly. And I'm so glad that there are other people out there that feel the same way, man. So once again, thank you. And looking forward to the future, man. The future is bright, especially with this series, man, which is exactly what we're about to talk about. Once again, this is the One Piece chapter 957 Afterthoughts. I waited until the Viz translation came out. Unfortunately, the past couple of days have been very, very busy for me, so I wasn't able to sit down and really get a chance to talk about this. But I feel like today, because the Color Walk Compendium is coming out soon, and I want to make a video on that, I was like, no, before I get to the Color Walk Compendium, I really, at the very least, want to talk about rocks. I want to talk about rocks and an interview that Oda did back, I believe it was in early 2018. And I want to talk about how that interview is so relevant to the stuff happening right now, and is extremely relevant to that portion of the chapter, man. So I'm going to go find that interview, I'm going to press the red button, and we'll be back in just a second. Alrighty, man, so we're back to talk about some One Piece Awesome Sauce. Right here we have a tweet from Sandman. Go follow him on Twitter, man. This individual, whenever a interview or something news related to One Piece that a lot of other outlets don't cover gets released, Sandman is always the first, and to me, the individual I can always go to with 100% trust that they know exactly what they're talking about. Sandman, definitely go give Sandman _AP a follow on Twitter, because like I said, when something like this gets released, that's your go-to individual. At least for me, that's my go-to person, has been for a very, very long time. So, January 25th, 2018, Sandman tweeted, "Here is my translation for Oda's message about Garp and Dragon in One Piece the 28th log, which was released today." Now, I'm going to read off the interview. I'm going to show off a section of this in the video here right next to me. So actually, let me move over here, future reference, so I can put the thing right here. You know, hey, man, we're getting better editing around here, dog. I'm not a good editor, but by God, we're gonna move to improve, man. We're gonna move to improve and move forward. You feel me? So, right here, the question stated, which characters would you like to go into detail about if you had enough time? And knowing Oda, that's all my man wants. You know what I'm saying? And when I was look back to the interview, whenever they asked, or whenever he was talking to Kishi, and when Kishi wrapped up his story, Oda was like, dang, man, I real deal have to end One Piece. And we can tell that he meant that. Because since that interview took place, I believe it was toward the end of Dressrosa. And, yes, toward the end of Dressrosa, because that's whenever 2015... around Naruto ended in 2014 November. So, and that interview took place a couple months after. So, Oda was like, "Yo, I have to end this series." And we have seen that since the end of Dressrosa, since chapter 801, this series has picked up the pace, man. This series has picked up the pace at an astronomical rate, and it's insane how fast-paced Wano has been. I mean, out of this world, because Oda knows that he needs to end the series one day. And he feels like it is his duty to deliver the ending before something happens. You know what I'm saying? And we know how much he cares about that ending. Because he non-stop talks about how amazing and wonderful that ending is compared to everything else. Like, to him, Marineford was just a side story compared to what he has coming on. You know what I'm saying? Like, so to him, he's always looking forward into the future. Because the final panel and that final saga, or that final chapter, that final arc, to him is the creme de la creme that's One Piece at its best. And he's done everything to weave around into that. And so, whenever this person is asking this question, I'm pretty sure that Oda in his mind is like, these are things that I want to talk about, but I'm still thinking about the way in which I want to do it, because it's something that it's going to happen, but I'm still in my mind like, alright, I'm putting the pieces together. Okay, they're in the idea book, but I'm still thinking about how to put it together. At least that's the way that I'm thinking about it. If I were a storyteller in Oda's mind who's writing something on a weekly basis, I'm going to assume that I would think in this manner. But anyways, Oda then replies, well, there is a helpful means named cover stories in One Piece for that purpose, which we know that he uses a lot. Anyway, there remains some characters I want to go into detail. It would be interesting if I focus on Marines. I can come up with a magnificent story about Garp. I'd like to draw some relationship and talks between him, Akainu, Aokiji, Smoker, Hina, Kobe, who joined Marines one after another, Cypher Pol, and Roger. And then after that, he states it would be interesting. It would also be interesting if I focus on the Revolutionary Army, mainly Dragon. Why do they intend to make a revolution? With what belief? How did they meet? The story about Luffy's birth would be interesting. Some of those stories would be serious. All of the stories about their lives lead to Luffy. Okay, I'll draw Luffy. Now then, with that being said, and with that still in your mind, let's go back to this chapter, and we're going to go to the history lesson that Sengoku is giving them. And just keep the page right there, but I want to talk about something real quick. In the back of your mind, just keep in mind the current events that are happening in the One Piece world that are relevant, that we are thinking about non-stop. We are thinking about what happened to Sabo, we are thinking about what happened to Bibi, we are thinking about what happened to Cobra, and we're thinking about what is going to happen with the Revolutionary Army. Because the Revolutionary Army and the Celestial Dragons, we have no idea what took place in the Reverie, that at this point in time, their war, quote-unquote, is at a standstill. Or the Celestial Dragons / the Marines may have the upper hand if they truly did something to Sabo that we do not know of. So, at this point in time, it could be anything. But just keep that in the back of your mind when it comes to those characters and how they are relevant to this point. Now let's look at this, right? In this chapter, it was completely 100% centered by Rox and Garp. Rox, Garp, and just the Marines in general in the organization that is the Marines was the main central point of this chapter, even though we got the bounties of the biggest and most well-known pirates in the history of this series, and we got information on the history of the most well-known pirates in the series. At the end of the day, this was a history lesson given by Sengoku to the Marines so that they have this knowledge moving forward, which is also us knowing this knowledge moving forward. So, with that being said, let's look at this God Valley incident one more time. Now, we're going to start from this page right here. In addition to their Captain Rox, they also featured a young Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Kaido. Yes, it's true, the three of them were part of the same pirate crew years ago. I can't believe this. There are other Rox members who went on to carve out a name for themselves. The Golden Lion, the Silver Axe, Captain John, Wang Zi. Speaking of Captain John right quick, how incredible is Gecko Moria, man? I mean, with every single chapter in this arc, I have grown to truly appreciate this man, Gecko Moria. If Gecko Moria, after getting annihilated by Kaido, truly chose to get revenge on Kaido get revenge on Kaido, and also build his own crew. Of course, the whole thing about Through the Bark is because he lost his entire crew, he wants to fill them up with zombies, and so that he wouldn't feel alone. But when it comes to getting Oars, when it comes to getting Ryuma, and when it comes to getting Captain John, the fact that he was able to get 3 legends of the One Piece universe on his crew, though they may be zombies, by God, we have to have respect for Gecko Moria. My respect for Gecko Moria continues to rise with every single chapter in this series. I mean, how in the flying flag does this man do all of this, bro? We were told that his crew was wiped out. That means Gecko Moria was out here on a solo mission getting these bodies. You know what I'm saying, dog? So, looking forward to seeing more from Gecko Moria when it comes to the Wano arc. And hopefully we get to see, I would love to see like a 5-page flashback of how it is that he got Ryuma, Oars, and Captain John's body, man. And how, if he did get Captain John's body, then what you're telling me is that Captain John, Ryuma, and Oars were all killed on Wano. That's some interesting food for thought right there, man. Right? Because we don't know where exactly it is that Gecko Moria took and got all of these individuals. But if they are all connected to Wano, how crazy would it be if those 3 individuals suffered their fate there in Wano? Right? I mean, that's going to lead to, with Captain John, history with the Rocks, with Oars, history of the entire verse, and then, of course, we already know with Ryuma. So this can't be real. How can something like this be? How can something this huge be lost to history? Well, they got it along so terribly. Not one of them actually wants to tell the tale. the ambition of their Captain Rocks was to be king of the world. And this is 100% with the Viz translation, which means we now have true translation, which tells us the same thing. The other translation stated that he wanted to be king of the pirates, but the other two says king of the world. So I'm going to stick with the one that's consistent with the king of the world title, which to me still, in the back of my mind, I still want y'all to keep that food for thought, man. Do not be surprised if Rocks is Instant Messenger Sama, or at the very least has a very strong relation to the story behind Instant Messenger Sama. Do not be surprised, man. Do not be surprised. They open hostilities directly against the world government like some kind of terrorist organization. The government itself covered up much of their deeds, but at the time everyone had heard of the threat they posed. This was due to a fateful event 38 years ago at God Valley. The Rocks pirates, the strongest crew in the world, were wiped out at an island called God Valley, according to the news reports. Now, talking about God Valley real quick, somebody on Twitter the other day, and I believe they mentioned my boy Joy Boy Theories. They mentioned Joy Boy in an interesting tweet talking about how apparently God Valley could very well be the Emerald City that was brought up back in Jaya. Now, I'm going to bring up the page just in case y'all don't know what I'm talking about. Let's see. I'll bring it up right here. Bellamy's introduction. Yo, this stuff is so amazing. I love all this stuff, man. Jaya still, to me, is truly some of the most incredible stuff, man. I love this entire saga. Where is the Emerald City? Emerald City. Emerald City. Here it is. Listen, the age of pirate pipe dreams is over. El Dorado, the Emerald City, the One Piece. So, in other translations, El Dorado can be translated to the City of Gold. So, in the English translation, I believe it's also in the English dub, and in the original translation, whenever I first went back and read the manga, it said whenever I first read the manga, it said the City of Gold. So we take the City of Gold, we know what that is, Skypia. We take the One Piece, we know that exists. Now the Emerald City, that's something that we've always talked about and discussed here on the channel, because I just found this to be such an interesting topic. And I remembered that Everything One Piece, if you remember Everything One Piece from back in the day, he made a very interesting theory video on that too, but that's before all this knowledge that we have now. So what I want to get to is, the individual that brought that up on Twitter really had my mind going like, Flagnards, God Valley truly can be the Emerald City. And I believe it was Joy Boy that replied to that saying, yo, if that truly is the Emerald City and the Celestial Dragons were there, that would make sense, because the Celestial Dragons love to live and love to wine and dine in the biggest of elegance. You know, like they don't like being with these commoners. They don't even like breathing the same air as them. So what better way for them to live than in a place like the Emerald City? You know what I'm saying? So it would make a lot of sense if God Valley truly is the Emerald City, because it would be a place of legend. And I know that people, after Dressrosa, brought up that the green bit is the Emerald City, but that was never 100% confirmed. So just food for thought, man, when it comes to the Emerald City possibly being God Valley, which would be very, very fascinating and really cool, considering, like I said before, the more chapters we get like this, the more we can see that all of this was in Oda's 5-year plan. You know, whenever he originally made One Piece, we go all the way back to Alabasta, which, by the way, guys, this is a coincidence. Don't take this. And if you don't think it's a coincidence, then let's put on our tinfoil hats. This is crazy. I was thinking back to the Rocks, right? And we know how Shaki carries she wears like those spider things and whatnot. So the spider has become synonymous with the Rocks in the One Piece community. So I was like, man, I wonder, because now that I think Rocks is Instant Messenger Sama to a certain degree, I was looking back at Alabasta again, because my original theory video that I had for Instant Messenger Sama is back like in that time. Like it was based on Alabasta and Jaya. And I still have certain things that I want to work on when it comes to that. But anyways, I went back and I looked at the Spiders Cafe. And I was like, man, the Spiders Cafe was also in Alabasta. Like, so it's a possibility that, and this is just me in the back of my mind. Like, now I think about it, I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. But at the same time, hey, man, you can never rule it out. But, so the Spiders Cafe is in Alabasta, which we know, or at least for me, is 100%, it's the most relevant thing that we know to being connected to Instant Messenger Sama. I truly do believe that. But when it comes to the 5-year plan, like I was saying, Oda has all of these things that he placed back then that are extremely relevant now, like, you know, with the ancient weapons introduced in that arc, the Shichibukai really getting centered on in that arc, the introduction after that arc of or in the middle of the arc, like stuff like the Poneglyphs, the Will of D, the Void Sentry, the Lex of Robin, and then the stuff after that, we got introduced to Doflamingo, we got introduced to Kuma, we got introduced to Blackbeard, we got introduced to the Mighty Joa, we got introduced to the Gorosei. I mean, it seemed like this was all a part of Oda's 5-year plan since then, right? Especially when looking back on it. It's just that he extended it far beyond what he believed was the case. But going back to Alabasta for a sec, and to the Spider's Cafe. The reason why I said put on your tinfoil hats. Now, we know that a big theory in this community is Alabasta got Buster called. And, you know, lately on the Instagram and Twitter page for One Piece, or for Oda's staff, they've been having the Buster Call symbol all over the place. It's been weird. Like, really, really weird marketing for something I have no idea what it is. But something I find fascinating, and like I said, put on your tinfoil hats, man. Put them on, son, because what I'm about to say is a huge stretch, but it's just food for thought. You know, it's not like I'm saying this is happening, but it's just nice food for thought. The Spider's Cafe was brought up outside of Alabasta in chapter 409 in a cover story. And that was whenever the members of the Baroque Works went back to there, and they started broken down into something else. Like it's something, it's not the same Spider's Cafe that they once saw in the past. But what I want to get to that is the Spider's Cafe, was brought up in chapter 409. Do you know what chapter 409 is? Chapter 409 is the same chapter when Spandam accidentally activated the Buster Call. Take that as you will. All right, Oda stated in that thing I just read that cover stories are how he likes to tell stories outside of the actual story. In the back of his mind, in Water 7 Annie's Lobby, which is an arc already that's talking about future stuff in the series, he had the cover story with NL and the Moon and the Baroque Works. It just so happened to be that they went back to the Spider's Cafe in the very same chapter that Spandam accidentally called in a Buster Call. I said to put on your tinfoil hats, and I mean it. I mean it 110%. All right. So take that as you will. We move forward. Anyways. According to news reports, a rampaging force of evil that none had been able to stop had been taken down by a Navy Vice Admiral by the name of Garp. Garp. Oh, man. Yeah, after this chapter, I mean, Garp was already a legend to me. 100%. I've always said that not only is my man a Monkey D, but when you box Roger, and Roger respects you so much as an equal, that he's willing to give you his very son, and now of course, we can see that those ties went much further than just being rivals. But even at that point, I was like, Garp was always a legend to me. I mean, my guy was so GOAT. You know you're a legend whenever you can be something greater, but you choose not to because it's too much of a hassle. You know, because my boy was a Vice Admiral for years, knowing damn well he could have been a Fleet Admiral years ago. And not a Fleet Admiral, an Admiral. Because, Fleet Admiral and Admiral, those are two huge... I mean, Fleet Admiral has arguably the most important role in the Marines. Because as Akainu's seeing now, he can't just storm in when he wants to do something. This same dude who immediately was behind the Buster Call attack back in Ohara. And you see somebody like him saying, no, hold on, let's take it easy. Let's not go into Wano. Because he does not want to risk all of his soldiers getting annihilated because he does not know what's there. So it's different whenever you're Fleet Admiral, whenever you're regular Admiral. Because Fleet Admiral has such a massive responsibility, man. And they report directly to the Gorosei. So, Sengoku, man, how he dealt with that for so many years, you gotta have respect for him, bro. You really do. But anyways, Garp the hero. So then we're gonna move forward here for the this explanation right here. The first reason for this, which was never reported, is that he had to work with pirates to win the battle. Pirates? Yes. The other reason is that he protected the Celestial Dragons in doing so. Where do Celestial Dragons come in? Shouldn't it be a sailor's duty to protect Celestial Dragons? His personal moral compass spares no room for such a duty. The reason Garp has always refused to take an admiral's position is because it would place him directly beneath the Celestial Dragon's command. Exactly. It's only his accomplishments and stature that keep him from being eliminated for his insubordination. In short, this is the truth. In order to protect the Celestial Dragons and their slaves at God Valley, keep that in mind. In order to protect the Celestial Dragons and and their slaves in God Valley. Garp joined forces with Roger there at the island, and they broke apart the Rocks pirates. That is the God Valley incident. Now, with that information in mind, let's reread what I just read to you from Sandman one more time. Oda states, well, there is a helpful means named cover story in One Piece for that purpose. Anyway, there remains some characters I want to go into detail. It would be interesting if I focus on Marines. I can come up with a magnificent story about Garp. I like to draw some relationship and talks between him and Akainu and Aokiji, Smoker, Hina, Kobe, who joined Marines one after another, Cypher Pol, and Roger. Now, let me stop there. Immediately, the first thing that comes to mind is chapter 956 with those names. We drew a correlation in the community. I received like 40 different comments on this, and this is exactly why I love being a YouTuber, because I'm able to receive comments like that, man. Where we saw Kainu in chapter 592 with the sword tattoo, and some people were like, "Yo, he must be a member of Sword." Now, this is fascinating if that's the case, because who are the other members that we originally thought were also going to be members of Sword, alongside with Kobe and Drake? Right here, who Oda's talking about. Aokiji, Smoker, Hino could definitely be one of them, and Akainu, right? So, original members that we know of, Kobe and X-Drake. Original members that we know of, Kobe, X-Drake. Members that we are predicting and or theorizing to be in the group. Aokiji, which is the reason why he joined the Blackbeard Pirates, and the same with X-Drake joined Kaido. Smoker, which just makes sense from a morality standpoint and the type of stance that he takes, considering in what y'all were telling me, that you believe that Sword is going to be how the Marines are going to be after the series ends. Like, when the series ends and the current Marine system is taken down, those individuals of Sword will be the ones to take over the new Marines at the end of the series when everything has changed. Which I 100% agree with. So with that being said, though, Hina being one of them, because she's always had a connection with Smoker, and now the connection with the Rocks, I can most certain, and because she was in that chapter, in chapter 907, when the Rocks was first introduced, 100% see that being a correlation. And then Garp, of course, that's a given if he is, or could be at the very least, associated with members like that of the Sword. So that's fascinating to me, that in 2 chapters, we can already draw conclusions here that this is what Oda was talking about. Where Oda wanted to have a story with all of these individuals that somehow correlate together in some way, shape, or form. Which has to be connected to the Sword, which is also going to be connected to the future of the series, but also is connected to the Rocks. All of this is connected, which is also connected to Onigashima. So, now we can move on to the next one. Cypher Pol and Roger. Cypher Pol at this point in time is the biggest what if in Wano. Because I think at this point in time, we can safely assume that there is going to be, it's going to be like a Royal Rumble in Wano, right? We know that individuals like Weevil, Marco, Moria, possibly Blackbeard, possibly Shanks, are going to come in here into Onigashima. You know, that's a safe assumption, especially with if Kaido and Big Mom truly get taken down soon. This will be the last time all of the OG Emperors, aside from Whitebeard, will be in one place and at one time. The future of the Emperors, which I believe to be Luffy, Kid, Buggy, and Blackbeard, are going to be in the same place at the same time, which I, of course, by that statement, you can catch my grift when I say that Buggy is probably going to be there too. But I think the future of the Emperors and the current Emperors are going to be in Wano. I truly do believe that, because in order for us to move on to the next generation of the series, we need to see the old generation, and then we need to see the new generation moving forward from here, right? Because after Wano, it is going to be the beginning of the era of the worst generation, even more so than it is already. So, with that being said, though, because we can theorize and we can talk about that, and we can say with utmost certainty that if Shanks shows up, if Blackbeard shows up, they can turn the tides of the war in one way or the other. If Dragon shows up, the war turns in one way or the other. Now, there's one organization that no matter what happens, the tides of the war have already changed because of them. And that is the Cypher Pol organization. From the beginning of Act 2, we have been seeing the talks, I believe that was in chapter 126 as well, where they spoke about those weapons, 925, 925 and 926. At the end of 925, they talked about those weapons dealers that now they had to talk with because Doflamingo was down. And we know that those weapons dealers, at this point in time, after the last chapter, with what Drake was saying, has to be Cypher Pol. We saw Cypher Pol talking to the Orochi as well. So we can assume that Cypher Pol is probably the biggest weapons dealer and the individuals that are supplying this entire war to happen in the first place. Right? Now, with that being said, what other possible inclusion could they have to Wano and to Onigashima? Because if all this is truly connected, and Cypher Pol, because they're so deeply connected into the poneglyphs, and because they're so deeply connected to Robin, in this arc, we know that the Kozuki family are the individuals that created, or the Kozuki clan are the individuals that created the poneglyphs. So with that being said, because of all of this already having been a connection with Ohara, with Cypher Pol, with everything going on there, it is not a far stretch of the imagination that the strongest intelligence agency will be here to attempt to take out all of the information once again. And now I'm not saying that there's going to be a buster call on the island because it's Wano, and I'm not sure if they're going to get involved to that manner. But what I am saying is, if Cypher Pol is here, they're the most unpredictable bunch in terms of us actually knowing information when we might or might not know it. Because for me, in my mind, in my headcanon, at the end of this arc, we're going to know so much about the Void Century. Thanks to the poneglyphs, thanks to the Kozuki family and the Kozuki clan, and the history of their clan, possibly some stuff about the Will of D, and because of the Road Poneglyph here, we're going to know a lot. Going into after Wano, we're going to be knowing so much about the history of the world of One Piece. After this arc, that the only way something like that can get stopped from information being flowed into us, like into our veins, is if Cypher Pol is there. And Cypher Pol were to somehow diminish and or get rid of certain amounts of information. Right? So just keep Cypher Pol in your mind when it comes to that, and the importance of them going forward. Because if Oda has them being an integral part into the Rock storyline and the Onigashima storyline, then it means they have to go back to what they truly are at their core, which is an intelligence agency. Just keep that in mind, man, because Cypher Pol is going to be very, very important. And the last part of that, Roger. It doesn't get more important than Roger, man. That is the former king of the pirates, according to Akainu. Out of all the individuals there, we had Whitebeard, we had Shanks, but the Pirate King was the one who recruited Kozuki Oden, man. We already knew that Roger was going to be important to this arc going into it, considering the fact that above everything else, Oden joined Roger for his final voyage. So at the end of the day, he was a member of Roger's crew to the very end, right? So Roger and him already have that connection, of course, with the voice of all things. We only know certain characters that have the voice of all things. And Oden, Momonosuke, Luffy, and Roger now being those characters that we know of that have the voice of all things. Roger, we've always known was going to have a connection to this arc. But after this chapter, and after how Akainu and Sengoku were kind of trying to draw the line of, man, in Wano and Oden, there was something that drew all of these characters here to Wano. I've even heard some theories saying the God Valley is Wano. Now, I'm not sure if that's the case. It's a possibility, but I don't think so. But I do think that there definitely is a reason why all of this is taking place in Wano. And it definitely has to do with the history, the Void Century, and the world behind One Piece. Because if not, then why else would the Kozuki clan create the poneglyphs here? You know what I'm saying? It's definitely a place with historical value and importance in this series. And because of that, I do think that we're going to get, with Oden's flashback, something very, very important and integral with Roger, man, in this arc. And we've already gotten that here with him and Garp. This was huge information, man. Huge information. The fact that Roger, an individual that we know to be the king of the pirates, we knew that he didn't want to team up with anyone. He did everything on his own. My man took on Shiki and the entire fleet by himself. Like Roger, he was just that dude. He was that dude. He needed no one else, man. Rivals with Whitebeard, with Rocks. But this man decided to uphold arms with Garp for the same cause. Right? To protect the Celestial Dragons and or slaves in that time. Or if you don't want to go down that route, then just to help Garp out with that situation because it was the right thing to do in a similar way that Luffy did with Smoker back in Alabasta. You know, so take that as you will, son. But with something of that magnitude happening there with Roger, a person that we know, that wouldn't really... I mean, I don't take Roger as somebody that would align themselves with someone. But for him to align himself with Garp, there had to have been something of extreme value there, man. And that is the one piece of this puzzle that we do not know that is just killing me, dude. Now, let's talk about the Celestial Dragons, which I think is the missing piece of this puzzle. Now, before we talk about Celestial Dragons, let's talk about the second portion of this paragraph. It would also be interesting if I focus. It would also be interesting if I focus on Revolutionary Army, mainly Dragon. Why do they intend to make a revolution? With what belief? How do they meet? The story about Luffy's birth would be interesting. Some of those stories would be serious, and all their stories and their lives would lead to Luffy. Now, of course, where there are Celestial Dragons and where there are slaves, immediately the first thing that comes to mind for me is Dragon and the Revolutionary Army. Now, I strongly do believe, because of Garp and Roger's fight and battle here with rocks and with all these characters and with the Celestial Dragons being involved, I do believe that the aftermath of this incident, maybe even the incident itself, led into what would become the creation of the Revolutionary Army. Do not be surprised if the commanders and or leaders of the Revolutionary Army, or at the very least the founder in Dragon, was heavily influenced in creating the Revolutionary Army in the first place, thanks to the aftermath created by this arc. And when I say that, we have to talk about Luffy's birth, man. Now, I was in one of those, you know, whenever you're just talking to your friends all night about One Piece. I mean, as One Piece fans, I'm pretty sure y'all can relate to me when it comes to that. And one person I really love talking about One Piece with is my boy Commodore Laz. I definitely go subscribe to Commodore Laz. Awesome dude. Awesome YouTuber. Really, really knowledgeable about One Piece. So one night, we were talking about One Piece until like 5 a.m. I mean, it was just one of those things. We were just going back and forth, back and forth. And he presented the idea that I had never heard before to that, like... I mean, I hope he makes a video on this one day, but he presented the idea that Luffy's mother was a Celestial Dragon. And the way that he worded it, I was like, dog, if that is the case, I'm on board. I'm on board. I know it's a popular theory, or not a popular theory, but it's like one of those floating theories in the community, but you almost never really get information behind that besides, oh, maybe Luffy's mom was a Celestial Dragon. Laz broke it up to me one by one, talking about the theory. And I hope, like I said, I hope he makes a video on it one day, because it would definitely be awesome, and it blew my mind when I first heard him say it in the call. But why I think this is relevant is that regardless of if Luffy's mom was a Celestial Dragon or is a Celestial Dragon or not, I do believe that Luffy's birth and or Dragon and Luffy's mother's connection is connected to the Celestial Dragon and the slaves. If she was a slave, if she was a Celestial Dragon, if she was connected to the Celestial Dragons, if she was the original leader of the Revolutionary Army, we don't know. But I do believe that Dragon and Luffy's mother, and that entire thing that spiraled down into Luffy eventually becoming born, was thanks to the God Valley incident. I truly do believe it. I think there is no other reason why Oda would include the Celestial Dragons and slaves in that particular portion of that story if it wasn't going to be relevant to the Revolutionary Army. Especially when saying something like this. And I hope you guys are catching my drift, because I truly do believe that, man. I truly do believe that 110%. And when he says that, like, why did they intend to make a revolution? You know, what was the motivation behind it? Why did they create it? What caused them to create this? And in the back of my mind, originally, I was like, it's the Messenger-sama. Duh. But now, if it's the Messenger-sama truly is rocks, that changes the game. That changes the game. Because now, that's connected also to the God Valley incident. And we know that Rocks, even if he is not as the Messenger-sama, we knew that the things that he was bringing forth to the God Valley incident. The Marines and the world government did not even want to know this thing existed. So on God Valley, things were going down that were against and taboo to the world government. And what are things taboo to the world government? Poneglyphs, the Will of D, the Void Sentry. These are things, and the ancient weapons. These are things that the world government does not allow anyone to speak of. I'm going to assume because it's Rocks that it was all for. That it was all for. And what are they connected to? The Celestial Dragons, Roger and Garp. It had to have been that led down to the aftermath and the spiral that is Luffy's birth. All of it had to have connected to Luffy being born, bro. It had to. Knowing how inherited will works in this series, it has to be the case. And with that being said, do not be shocked if in post Wano, maybe, I don't know, man. Maybe not in post Wano, but the arc after. Maybe even inside Wano. We get the story of Luffy's birth, man. Do not be surprised. It's incoming. It's incoming, and that story is going to be extremely, extremely important to the Revolutionary Army, to Garp, to possibly the Sword, and all of these pieces that are coming together before our very eyes, man. But do not be surprised if that is the case. And it's just interesting food for thought, man. Interesting food for thought, and I cannot wait to find out more about the God Valley incident because it seems like it's something that completely changed the game. I mean, after that, everything changed when the Rocks Pirates split apart. I mean, to be honest with you, the God Valley incident to me is arguably the second most important moment in the series. And this is why I say that. The first most important in the series, obviously, is Roger getting executed. But the second most important moment in the series has to be the God Valley incident. If what I'm saying is true, and it caused the formation of the Revolutionary Army, or the aftermath of that caused the formation of the Revolutionary Army. Think about it like this. Rocks was defeated, or if he ascended to become Mr. Messenger Sama, then he ascended, right? So either defeated or ascended. Rocks was taken out of the picture. The biggest pirate at that point in time that everyone knew of was taken out of the picture. After that, his biggest commanders became the most well-known pirates of the entire era. Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, Shiki. Some of the most well-known pirates of this era. The individual that was boxing them square on was Gold D. Roger, who was starting his legend here. Then you have the hero of the Marines, who also started his legend here in Garp. And all of them started on the spiral to what would eventually lead to Roger being executed. Here. They were protecting the Celestial Dragons. If this was truly the Emerald City and it was destroyed and or taken out because the world government did not want to know what actually took place here, and the individuals that were there still are not speaking of this. By God, the God Valley incident might be the second most important incident that has taken place in the series so far, at least in the past. The God Valley incident is what set the pieces for everything. If Rocks would never gotten taken out, the current Emperor system would not exist. If Rocks was not taken out, to this very day, it would probably be Rocks and his crew, and then if Roger was still around, Roger and his crew. And that's it. Because there's no crew that I can think of that is taking on Rocks' crew, bro. Unless like Shanks, or after Roger gets taken out, Shanks and other individuals are par. I can't think of another individual on par. Well, let's join him. So after Rocks was taken out, that sent the balance of the world in place, which is why, to me, if Rocks is Instant Messenger Sama, it would just fit so perfectly, bro. I mean, after he was put into power, everything was just geniusly orchestrated. The future of the world, the way he was able to hide everything. He truly was the king of the world. He was the king on the pirate side as their the captain of the emperors at that point in time, aside from Roger, which is the one person he could not take out. And on this side, the king of the world, on the world government side. But the thing is, the one missing piece of that is, why would the Gorosei allow him to be that? Not only that, but if Garp didn't know of his existence, then why wouldn't he do something about it? And or Dragon, right? So it's just, there's missing pieces to it, but it's just, if Instant Messenger Sama is Rocks, and he has that final villain vibe to him, there are so many characters and things that are already against this individual, son. This very individual's existence is something that is that people want to take off. My God, look at his name, Rocks D. Zebek. And what is Zebek? Zebek, as y'all were telling me in the comment section, is the second half of Blackbeard's ship name. Now, if Blackbeard is carrying on Rocks' legacy, right? Then by God, it's already in stone. It's already in stone. So I don't know, man. I don't know. But it's interesting. It's interesting. There's a lot of food for thought, a lot of tinfoil hats, but it's just, I love chapters like this, and I love situations like this, and I love when Oda gives us stuff like this, because we can just talk about it endlessly and look back on other things he said, other moments in the series. We're like, by God, man, like, it's all coming into fruition now. Now, I want to talk about one more thing, man. I want to talk about just one more thing, and then we're going to get out of here, because I really want to just sit down, continue to think about it, and before the next chapter comes out. And so I want to talk about just one more thing, man. The last thing, of course, is what I was just leading towards, which is the legendary Instant Messenger Sama himself, man. And when we look back at Instant Messenger Sama, and we look back at chapter 908, and I always look back to this chapter because I think that when we end the series at the present moment, I don't think there is a single chapter that is more relevant to Endgame One Piece than that. Right. Chapter 108. So, or aside from that, and probably like stuff in Jaya, and possibly Post Marineford, but that chapter 908. Let's just say that Instant Messenger Sama had those pictures there, with Luffy, Blackbeard, Shirahoshi, and Vivi. And those are all the most important set pieces, from what I can see, in this current state. The Nefertari family are traitors. They were the one family that did not join the rest of the 20 Kings. Alright, that was well established. Blackbeard is a part of the Marshall Lee family, and possibly carrying Zebek's legacy. Luffy, of course, is carrying Roger's will. And son of Dragon, grandson of Garp, list goes on. Shirahoshi's an ancient weapon, but also the princess of Fishman Island. So when you put these things and when you put them together, and you bring Instant Messenger Sama into the equation, and why it is that he would want to focus on these characters, I feel like now more than ever, I feel like we really have to consider the fact that instead of looking at this as endgame stuff, I think it might be time for us to look at this as, by God, this could all pop off now. And the reason why I say this is because even if the stuff with Sabo and or Vivi does not get resolved in a post-Wano, the effects of what has taken place here is going to be felt here in Onigashima. With the way that stuff is going down now, I feel like Oda's going down the path that he really wants Onigashima to be where a lot of this stuff culminates. I'm not saying Instant Messenger Sama is showing up. I'm not saying that Instant Messenger Sama is going to continue on with his plan. But what I am saying, or I am saying that technically, but what I am saying is, do not be surprised if Onigashima and the stuff that is currently going down in Onigashima and the stuff currently going down around the world, if we're looking at Instant Messenger Sama as the endgame boss, as the final individual that Luffy has to take on before Kobe, because I think it's well established in Chapter 1 or Chapter 2 that Kobe and Luffy, even if they don't fight, that's going to be the final confrontation in the series. But before that, whenever the actual world government and our Celestial Dragons get toppled down, this worldly structure that's constantly been oppressing the characters that we know and the history that we know, in order for Luffy to defeat that, if there is one individual who represents that, it is Instant Messenger Sama. So just do not be surprised if the stuff that is currently going down outside of the world, in Onigashima and all that stuff, is all a part of Instant Messenger Sama's plan, man. It feels like, it just feels so right. It feels like this is all perfectly coming together at the right time. And it's like, why introduce Instant Messenger Sama at the same time you introduce Rocks? It's like, is Oda making us want to believe that that one is another, but he's just going to break our ankles? That's more likely the case, because that's the way Oda works with things. But just keep in mind, man, Im-sama, man. Seriously, keep him in mind, because no matter what happens in this arc, and no matter what happens from here on until the end of the series, the number one thing that one must question and or consider when it comes to future events is the true motivations and what that individual truly has in store. Because there is no one in this series that has the amount of power to will over the information, the knowledge, the history of this universe than Instant Messenger Sama. So, with that being said, I have been King Recon, man. This has been an awesome looking back on not only this previous chapter and on the God Valley incident, but also just to talk about the interview that Oda did last year. I keep forgetting we're in 2019. Because I'm so ready for 2020, because in 2020, you're getting Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we're getting the new Evangelion film, and we're going to be getting Act 3 insane stuff in One Piece. So I'm ready for 2020, man. And the Olympics. But, currently at this point in time, it's 2019. So last year, January 25th, Oda did this interview. And later on that year, he did the Reverie, which was leading into that whole rock stuff. And now we're getting some of that information and or payoff and more questions when it comes to the whole rock stuff. When it comes to Rocks and Zebek and all that information with how he could be connected to Blackbeard and how the correlation, I think the correlation is definitely there. I've seen some people saying that the reason why Blackbeard's body is the way that it is because he possibly shares it with Rocks. At this point, who knows? You feel me? I've seen some other people saying that Blackbeard or that Rocks was the original person that had the darkness fruit. And that's why Blackbeard, whenever he was younger, and possibly he was here, or he was in that island, the pirate island, where he currently is right now, which is where the Rocks pirates first got together. So if Blackbeard was already there and he saw all this go down at that point in time, probably possibly had some traumatic thing going down. Some people say that Zebek could be his father. Who knows, man? But with all those things as food for thought, it is 120% that Rocks has to be connected to Blackbeard. And if Rocks is Instant Messenger Sama, Instant Messenger Sama is connected to Blackbeard, which we already know is the case. So we're just gonna keep all that in mind, man. I could go on longer, but I feel like for the other stuff that I have in my mind, I want to do more research on, because I want to talk about Vivi again. And I want to talk about the Revolutionary Army and that whole connection right there, but I want to do some more research on that, and hopefully we get some answers to that in the next chapter. But aside from that, man, this has been the Afterthoughts. Thank y'all so much for watching, bro. Leave me some comments, man. Y'all know, especially right now, with the way chapters are going, I'm looking forward to getting as many opinions and or comments as possible. There's been so many wonderful and incredible comments lately. Always on the channel, but especially with the stuff going down at this point in time where there being so many questions up in the air. It's such a great time to actually sit in the comments section and just talk with other individuals and really listen to y'all's opinions, because, man, dude, you never know when somebody could just bring out something out of the blue and you'd be like, flag darts. That happens to me every week. It happens to me every week, no matter where it is, if it's on Twitter, if it's in my comment section, if it's in somebody else's comment section. It's always a wonderful time. But shout out to Sandman for translating this, which was the whole basis on which I made this video on. And shout out to y'all, man, for watching this Afterthoughts when it was already on top of that massive behemoth of a reaction, man. So thank y'all so much. I'll be back next time with, I believe, I'm going to do Yaiba reaction and then the Color Rock Compendium after that. We'll be going up in like summer, man. And I'm super looking forward to diving into the Color Rock Compendium, because I've been looking forward to finally, because I did Volume 1 last year, but now it's time for Volume 2, which is Water 7 to Marineford. Can't wait to look through that, man. And just look at those wonderful color pages, because my Oda was going ham at that time period. And that time period in particular has a lot of nostalgia for me, because that's whenever I started diving into the manga after the anime. So that entire time period from like Thriller Bark to Marineford is really, really nostalgic for me in the manga. So super, super looking forward to that. And of course, I cannot wait to see y'all from the next One Piece chapter, which we will hopefully, no matter what happens, is going to be great. But I would just love to get some sort of answers when it comes to some of these questions, even though it's not going to happen. But that's the wonderful thing about the series. But if regardless of whether we start Act 3 or move around the world, or we stay here and see some bounties, I don't care, because it's going to be greatness regardless. Hope everybody has an awesome day, man. Take care. One Piece greatness. Huge shout out to y'all. Peace out. Have a blessed one, man. Take care.